Coming to you live from Alpharetta, Georgia, it's the Matt L. Podcast. Our next guest is Sauceda, James Sauceda, the University of the Chi Alpha Christian Fellowship campus pastor, campus missionary at the University of Georgia. So how have you been, James?
I've been good. Crazy summer on the road a lot, and good to be back in Athens, though.
Not to make light of the accident, but have you witnessed any horrific car accidents recently?
Yeah. I'm assuming that means you saw my Facebook post. I was leaving my office, and I looked in the rearview mirror and happened to see a semi hit a pickup truck, and just completely obliterate it. And the truck caught on fire, and yeah, it was pretty crazy. They got the lady out, but it took a while for that, and like locals, people driving by or whatever, we had gotten fire extinguishers to help put out the fire and keep it maintained at least momentarily until the fire department got there. So yeah, it was pretty crazy, pretty intense.
Yeah, I did see your Facebook status about it. Have you been watching any of the World Cup?
A little bit. I'm obviously I'm pro America. Um, I wasn't able to watch the last game, but I know we advanced, which is pretty crazy. Not a huge soccer, aka football fan, but like I said, I'm a fan of America, so I cheer for our boys pretty heartily, you know, because I can. So.
Whoa. What is it like having 4 kids?
It's like a zoo. No, it's really cool. Our oldest is 12, and she's really helpful with our youngest. So we have bookends, girls. So oldest and youngest are girls, and the middle two are boys, and their ages are 12, 9, 6, and 2. But there's times it gets a little bit overwhelming. Being outnumbered as a parent is a little different, but it's great. I mean, I love my kids, and I love having them around. And sometimes I do love to get away from them. you know, I gotta go to work. No, it's great. It's challenging though. Like as a pastor and a parent, and trying to raise my kids right, and you know, do right by them and do ministry full time. There's times when I don't do it well, where I focus on the outside ministry when I need to take a step back and make sure that my family is the priority. My wife will remind me, of course, about that, but yeah, it's I love my kids. They're fun. I teasingly, completely jokingly said, "Hey, hon, I love little babies. Let's have another one." And she was like, no, no. But yeah. Speaking of, she's texting me right now, my wife. So hold on a second.
I guess I'll just I guess I'll just talk for a minute.
I'm good. Go ahead.
Okay. That you saying that because you're a parent of 4 kids, sometimes you feel the need to get away. That reminds me of the spiritual discipline of rest.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's something that's really hard for a lot of parents. And some pastors aren't very good at it either, of saying, okay, I'm gonna take my Sabbath, I'm gonna take downtime, and you know do what God has called us to do. When God created the earth on the seventh day, He rested, and when you look at throughout the history of our faith, which stems from that of Judaism, they had the days of rest where like they would count their steps to make sure they didn't do too much work or whatever. Now, I try not to be that legalistic, but it is super important to eat right, and I'm not doing that, and sleep right, or get away and have that rest. It's good for your body, mind, and your spirit.
Yeah, my Chi Alpha campus pastor, Eric Lovejoy at Plymouth State University in New Hampshire, has 7 or 8 kids who he adopted.
That's
And,
yeah,
and my friend Brian, who is the Chi Alpha campus pastor at the University of New Hampshire, has 3 kids.
yeah, yeah. I think it's probably harder for my wife to get away from the kids than me, because I do work outside the home, and sometimes we do stuff with Chi Alpha that's fun, and it's like, hey, I'm gonna go over and do this, I'm gonna be gone, and she's home with the little one or whatever, and so we try and work at that, to make sure that she can come along, because she is a part of our ministry and what we do, and she plays a vital role not only in raising our family, but leading students.
You came and spoke at my church, Roswell Assembly, when we were in the middle of the series Hope for the Fractured Family.
Yes.
And your message was great because you come from a fractured family, um, because of your dad, or at least partially because of your dad. But if we hadn't been in the middle of that series, would you have preferred to talk more about Chi Alpha during or for the time you had to speak?
Um, I mean, I don't think the message that I would have shared would have been terribly different. Maybe my intro, and maybe, I mean, sharing my history. That's not something that I regularly do, like that part of my history, just because it's pretty intense, and I still have to kind of work through that sometimes myself. But I definitely think that the idea of building a legacy, like I talked about, is part of why we do what we do with Chi Alpha, that investment. And so, I might have focused a little bit more on specifically Chi Alpha, but I think it's all related. As far as I'm concerned, like my heart is that, and so it comes up and shows up in things that I say and do. I hope, I really hope. But yeah, so I mean, I might have talked a little bit more, but I don't know.
You mentioned the band Everclear's song "Father of Mine."
Yeah,
Father of Mine, where have you been?
yeah.
Are there any other songs from the '90s that come to mind that stand out or resonate to you or with you because of their lyrics?
Oh gosh. Well, I got into music in the '90s, so I mean, I have this problem, even though I work with young people, and before I got into Chi Alpha, I was a youth pastor. But basically, once I left college, I was never really on the cutting edge of what was cool music, Christian or otherwise, and so I have a tendency to be a little outdated in my musical preferences. But to answer your question, I mean, gosh, if you gave me a topic, I could probably tell you a song related to that issue from the '90s or something. Just that's my brain operates that way, and I often sing songs in response to things that happen in life or statements that are made. So,
Well, my dad travels a lot for his job all over the world, and I've come to accept that,
yeah,
and maybe more so after I became a Christian as a college student when I was 20 years old.
Yes.
But a couple of songs that I thought of were from the early 2000s were are "Blurry" by Puddle of Mudd, and the lead singer wrote the song about his son.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, there's a line in that song, "There's oceans in between us, but that's not very far." And the other song is "It's Been a While" by Sting.
It's been a
And
while since I. Yeah, I know that song. I know that song.
yeah, and there's a line in the two lines in the song, "Can I blame this on my father? He did the best he could for me." So those are a couple of songs I thought of.
Yeah. I mean, and there's so much music that does talk about that, and the idea. I mean, because we are impacted by it, by our families, and that shapes when it comes to music. That is our art. That is our art. It's not mine, but it's a form of expression, and people will tell their stories through that. So yeah, that that's true. I mean, it definitely shapes aspects of our life. Sure.
Listening to the song "Blurry" by Puddle of Mudd when it comes up on my iPod randomly, I'm not as affected by lines from the song as much as I have been in the past.
You're right.
Okay, so a completely different topic.
Okay.
Why is organic chemistry such a difficult major, especially at the University of Georgia? 50% is passing, but most students still fail the course. And sometimes some students who have to take organic chemistry end up getting involved with Chi Alpha, and sometimes some of those students are student leaders in Chi Alpha, right?
um, if you have any kind of science-related course, from my understanding, is medical or otherwise, that you end up going through the organic chemistry class. In talking with students, it sounds like I don't know. I don't know exactly how to describe what they say about why it doesn't seem to go well for them. But the class apparently, it's a lot of building off of. So you start here, and if you don't do well in that first test, you're probably not going to do well in the second test because it builds off the principles from the first test, and the third test off the prior two, and the fourth test off the prior two, and then the final is completely different, and it's written by somebody else completely. And so it's not even the same type of test as the previous test that had been taken for the semester. And yes, we did happen to have a couple of our Chi Alpha students in there together, and they both did end up on our student leadership team. And one of them maybe didn't pass, and, and one of them,
Hypothetically.
right, hypothetically speaking, they might have not have passed, and the other one did. But yeah, it's. I mean, I don't know. I am grateful that I do not have to take that course, and that I never had to.
So James, when you were in college, what did you have to take a science course?
I went to a small private Bible college in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It is now known as North Central University, and without taking away anything from the school, academics were not necessarily the priority in terms of the training. Yes, we had our core classes, and I did take science classes, but the emphasis was obviously, or I say obviously, but was primarily on the spiritual side. Pastoral theology, systematic theology, and Pentecostal distinctives, and classes that were Bible and faith related. So the science classes may have been a little simpler, and I'm trying to remember. I think I took chemistry, but I had taken chemistry in high school, so it wasn't like super challenging for me at that point.
And it wasn't organic chemistry?
No, it was not. It was not organic chemistry. it was just a step above the chemistry that I had taken in high school. So
Cool. I remember I took environmental geography for my science course and mathematics and the humanities for my math course.
nice. Yeah. My math course in college was like, it was called college algebra. And I mean, like, that's how advanced it was. And I joke that it was, just a step above math for daily living, um, which was a course one of my brothers had to take. Now, his math for daily living was, he's mentally handicapped. So his math class was literally, they're like, here, you go to the store, here's money, go buy stuff, and working that out so that way they're paying the right amount and getting their change back. My math class was a little bit more difficult than that, but I like to joke that barely. Um, you know, so yeah.
Well, James, I'm sorry that these questions are all over the place.
It's okay. I'm all over the place kind of guy.
I like that about you.
Thank you.
You said that if people came to UGA, the University of Georgia, you guys in Chi Alpha would show them around the campus and tell them about what campus life is really like. So what would be on the Chi Alpha no holds barred campus tour?
I mean, it just you okay. So Thursday we were at summer orientation, so the freshmen that are coming to UGA come in and they're touring the school, and they come in for this activities fair. So there's like 150 some organizations, some faith-based, some plenty not, but just so you can get a taste of the school. And I remember seeing this girl, and you could see in her eyes that she was crying. She had been crying, and this isn't like you're going, okay, something's wrong. And so I'm like, hey, are you all right? And she, yeah. I'm like, it's a little overwhelming, right? She's like, yeah. And that her mom had made a comment about all the sex, drugs, and alcohol that happens, and not that I want to talk about that kind of stuff, but I mean, the reality is there are a lot of bars and a lot of places for people that go and party on campus. Okay, and it's just a stone's throw from where the school is, but also given a little more historical tour of hey, game day. Okay, if you're not from a football college, you don't quite understand what it's like. There's 100,000 people in the stadium, and then another 50,000 people that come in and tailgate on campus. Okay, and there's a lot of drinking that takes place on that day, and it's like the school kind of maybe seems to look the other way on the underage drinking, or they're not cracking down on it as hard, and stuff like that. But like, there's just things that it's hard to learn the bus system. I mean, it's not hard, but it takes a little bit. Or figure your way around, or walking. And no joke, there are a lot of places where it's uphill both ways. You go down one hill and then you go back up. So then you're going home, and you're going back uphill. Luckily, there's not usually 2 feet of snow. But yeah, I mean, the stuff where you see things that a lot of times the school focuses, of course, on like all the positive aspects, and not that they're intentionally leaving out things that aren't. There are a lot of things that are positive that they leave out, but things that go unnoticed. And I like to. I would like to think that I notice the things that tend to go unnoticed. So I would probably show some more of that on my no holds barred tour. Not that I'm not involved in enough crazy stuff to show them a lot of that, but those things that they might not see otherwise on campus.
What's next for you with your family and or with Chi Alpha at the University of Georgia?
Well, specifically, like right now, my family is actually up north. They will be coming home this next week. I had a Chi Alpha directors meeting that I was at this past week, and so the family just stayed up north. So my wife wasn't home by herself with 4 kids. Um, but it'll be nice to have my family back in town. So that's first and foremost on my heart and mind with my family, to hug my kids and my wife, and um, have life be kind of normal for a little bit. But coming up this summer, we have Leadership Rundown, which is a statewide Chi Alpha, Georgia Chi Alpha activity to train student leaders. And that will be the first week of August. So that's a big thing for us, is training on how to do small groups, and how to run a table at an activities fair or different things like that. So that's a big thing. But then we also have school starts in August, and then we hit the ground running. So we'll start with our it's not, I say service because in the church world that's what we call it, but it's not necessarily a typical worship service, but we'll get that going.
Like a gathering?
August. Yeah, it's our main gathering. It does sometimes entail worship, and it's always, I should say, always has some kind of faith teaching, Bible teaching. Sometimes it involves food. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's discussion based. Sometimes it's a straight teaching. And when I say worship, musical worship, but if that makes sense, we don't have at this particular moment the resources, people-wise, to do a large musical portion of our gathering. Our gathering, which we call the Plug, by the way, a place for students to connect to God. We plug into God there. But we've got some different events. We're partnering with the local church for Cow Tongue Olympics. Yeah, it's kind of gross, but we basically imagine playing ultimate frisbee with a cow tongue.
Huh.
But that's only one of the events that we do there. And we do have hand sanitizer and rubber gloves and stuff like that, because it's kind of weird. But it's funny. I mean, you see students getting into it, and they, they're definitely grossed out. But then the competitive nature is like, I'm gonna go after it anyways. And we play like toilet paper dodgeball and different things like that. Toilet paper dodgeball, you have to duct tape that stuff, otherwise that junk just goes everywhere. And then we are having a barbecue for college students at our church, because there's going to be college student housing right behind that. And we got, like I said, just a few other activities that we're trying to get involved with that the university is already doing. No sense trying to do our own thing when we can, if we've made relationships with students and we can get a group of students together to go to an activity they call Dogs After Dark. It starts at 10 p.m. and goes till 2 a.m. and it's free for college students, or for the UGA students. It's like $5 for me or anyone who's not a student. And they'll have like a carnival with carnival rides and stuff. I mean, they had bumper cars is one thing. They do different themes. They do it in different locations. They always have good foods. They've had catering by Chick-fil-A and Jason's Deli and like Barbaritos, which is local here. I say local in the southeast, so it's, I mean, and that's a great event that if we can get our students together to go for that together and develop those relationships. And then we're already looking towards our fall retreat to get the students out of the city and go and be around each other and develop relationships, and get them sold on each other, because that's what they need, that community.
So I would imagine that the cow tongues would be slippery and that they would slip through people's hands.
It does. Have you ever been licked by a cat?
No. Is that a bad thing that I haven't, or a good thing?
No, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I mean, and I say that because you probably don't sit around and like touch your own tongue. But if you've been licked by a cat, you feel this weird thing. Well, the cow tongue, I mean, it's like this, and that's a small one. I mean, they can be huge, and it's got like big, huge, nasty taste buds on there. Yeah, it's gross. Whatever. But yeah, it gets a little sloppy and then dirty, and then you throw that stuff out as soon as you're done playing with it.
Where do you get them from?
You can get them at like a butcher shop sometimes, Mexican restaurants with like a butcher in them. They're frequent there, and sometimes you can get them at your regular grocery store, but you kind of sometimes have to look around for them.
On a serious note, you mentioned the fall retreats and the fall retreat that's coming up, and
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I went on a spring retreat with Chi Alpha as a freshman, first-year student, and I
Okay.
was baptized. I didn't go to any of the meetings, and they didn't know whether I was going to go to the retreat. I signed up to go, but I showed up at one of the meetings just to pay the $35 or whatever, and then I went on the retreat and I was baptized just because I thought it would be a cool thing to do. And then from that point, I started growing and becoming a Christian and learning that there were certain things that I couldn't do anymore, going from being a non-Christian to being a Christian.
Right. I mean, that's really cool. We have in the past partnered up with Georgia Tech and their Chi Alpha. Actually, it's Georgia Tech and Georgia State. It's Chi Alpha Atlanta, and gone on their fall retreat with them. They kind of planned it, and we brought a couple of students, and so it was really neat to be a part of things like baptisms. Actually, and we did baptisms in a hot tub because there was a hot tub. Like that was where this. I remember this guy Charles came up and said, "Hey, I want to be baptized. I just feel like it's that point in my faith walk. That it's time for me to make that public profession of faith and follow in Jesus' footsteps in being water baptized. Can we do that?" And I'm like, "Yeah, dude." So his campus pastor baptized him. But it's awesome. I mean, that's a great testimony for Chi Alpha. And sometimes people they do become a part of things and they're not really sure, or they're curious, or whatever. And sometimes we think. And I know somebody will probably call me a heretic for this, but sometimes people are moving along in their faith and growing in Christ, and it's like there's not this is the day I became a Christian, but they've just started changing their life, and God is affecting their life, and they don't have that August 13th was the moment, it was 8 a.m. I was at church camp, kind of moment. But they look back and realize my life is completely different. I've grown to follow God, and I've learned how to make Him happy, or the things that I need to get out of my life because they're not pleasing to God. They don't honor God, and so it's neat. I mean, it's a cool story that you're like, hey, I got baptized, but then from there, it was a learning process of me growing in my faith and becoming. I mean, we're all continuing to become, hopefully, who God wants us to be, but that point of, chasing that and realizing that's where you were going, that's really cool.
Yeah, I've heard that baptisms in hot tubs count. Although I think everyone should have a cold baptism, because I was baptized in a lake in April in Maine.
Yeah, that would be cold.
So I don't think any of these baptisms inside church buildings in heated baptismal tanks should count.
Right. My mom was baptized in a bathtub. All right, and I mean, maybe it was warm water, and I've seen a picture. Here she is, fully dressed, and they're like dunking her in the bathtub. And there's a lot of church baptismals that are not heated or warm, maybe room temperature at best. But yeah, definitely not as chilly as a lake in Maine in April.
If someone out there who is watching, who will watch this, is interested in supporting you financially, how can they? You are a campus missionary.
Right. If they wanted to support us, we are a part of the Assemblies of God U.S. Missions Department. One of the best things would probably be to email me. That's chi dot alpha dot Sauceda, Chi Alpha Sauceda at gmail.com, and we can get them any further information regarding that and moving forward, in that process, because obviously we want to, we'd like to connect with them, be able to put them on our email list, so when we send out our newsletters and things like that, they will get those regular updates. And you can also find us on Facebook at Team Sauceda. A lot of people say my last name is Sauceda. That's a Hispanic way to say it. But I was raised by my white mother, and so I just say Sauceda. Either way, it's no problem. But Team Sauceda, and people are like, how do you spell your last name? It's Sauce D-A. Just like spaghetti sauce, applesauce, whatever, with a D-A on the end. So Team Sauceda, University of Georgia Chi Alpha on Facebook. You can find me on Twitter, J_sauce. That's my Twitter handle. Some of my friends call me J Sauce for obvious reasons. But yeah, track us down, and we will make sure that you are set up.
It makes me think of jelly sauce for some reason.
I've been getting a little thicker on the middle, and sometimes I see my stomach jiggle like jelly, but I don't know.
So, what is your ancestry?
I am asked frequently if I am Asian. No offense to any Asians, but I am not.
You tell them yes, you are. Or you wish you were.
I actually have, some of our students had for a time called me Panda Joe. But I am half Mexican on my father's side. In fact, my grandfather on my father's side used to transport illegals into the country. So, yeah. I don't speak Spanish. I took Spanish in the 7th grade for like a quarter, and I didn't really like the Spanish teacher, so I took French, and then I got too interested in reading comic books, and so I didn't really pursue French either.
Is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers?
Well, thank you for having me on. Thank you for watching. Whether you're on campus or you're in high school, junior high, or you're an adult doing whatever, man, I just want to encourage you to find a group of people that are going to help you move you along in your faith. Maybe if you, I don't know, man, we all need those people in our lives, and loving Jesus is key. it's key. So yeah, I'm a goofball, and I hope you guys aren't completely and totally distracted by my collection of Star Wars toys and books and just junk in my room. I have Nerf stuff here, and helmets, like medieval helmets and shields and hockey sticks, and I don't know, weird stuff in here. But that's just kind of who I am. A little nerdy. Sometimes I hide it well. Other times not so much. But I like people, and so yeah.
I did notice that your book collection, you have a lot of books on your bookcase.
Yeah, that's just one of the bookshelves. I've got another over there and another over here. So, I read in spurts.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes I will read a lot, and then other times I will not read for months at a time. So
Well, usually, is there anything you'd like to say to our viewers is the last question I ask, but also, as a bonus question, I guess you could say, do you have any jokes or stories that you can think of off the top of your head that you might tell in one of your messages, in one of your sermons? You had to preach a sermon?
jokes or stories, which one?
One of each.
One of each. Well, I love this joke, and it's terrible, and I have no idea why I'm going to tell it, but I'm going to tell it anyways, because, and I probably wouldn't use this, but I have shared this. Um, so this pirate walks into an inn, you know, and he says to the innkeeper, "Hey, can I get something to drink?" And the innkeeper says, "Hey, man, are you okay?" He says, "Yeah, I'm fine. Why?" He goes, "Well, last time you were in, you didn't have a peg leg." Oh, yeah, yeah. So we're in this pirate battle, and cannonball took off my leg. He's like, "Oh man, that's terrible." He goes, "Yeah, but I'm used to it now." Because well, I also noticed you have a hook, for a hand. He said, "Well, it's another pirate battle, and it was hand-to-hand combat. We were sword fighting, and the guy cut off my hand." And he said, "Wow, man, that's terrible." He goes, "Yeah, I know, but I'm used to the hook and the peg leg." He goes, "Well, okay, man, you're wearing an eye patch. What happened?" He says, "Well, I was just sitting out on the deck one day, and I looked up, and a bird pooped in my eye." He goes, "You lost your eye because of it?" He goes, "No, first day with the hook." Sorry,
You
that's
have to imagine,
absolute.
James, you have to imagine the thousands of people laughing.
Right, right. No, it's a terrible joke, I know, but somehow it just makes me smile. Um, but no, one of the stories I love to share is about our student Alan, and I I don't know. You may have heard me talk about this when I shared in Roswell, but Alan was actually a second year student who transferred from a really small community college, so he was, um, I would say, like socially more like a freshman. Didn't really know his way around, and unaccustomed to living life outside his parents' home. And we tell our students, hey, if you need like a ride to Walmart or Target or grocery store or anything like that, please let us know. We would love to be able to help you and that kind of thing. So Alan, you know, I sit down with Alan to meet him for the first time, and the first thing he says is, "I don't like people." I'm like, oh, yikes. And then he says, "I prefer animals."
Hmm.
Okay. And then he continued to talk to me for the next hour and a half. But Alan called and said, "Hey, were you serious about the ride to Walmart? I need to go to Walmart." I said, "Sure, that's not a problem." He goes, "Can I bring my friend Christian along?" I'm like, "Not a problem." He says, "I was on the phone with my mom, and she was kind of walking me through how to sort my laundry." Because he'd never done laundry on his own, and I'm like, "Hey man, like lights and darks, it's pretty simple." And even my wife laughed. She's like, "Unless they're brand new, I just wash it all together," you know. And so we get inside to Walmart, and he says, I realized I need a new pair of shoes because I got my shoes all muddy playing Ultimate Frisbee with Chi Alpha." And he's like, "I just need a secondary pair of shoes." I said, "Oh, cool." He goes, "But I've never bought shoes without my mom or my sister being here." And so I said, hey, man, do you want me to put my thumb on the front to make sure you have room to grow? And he just gave me this dirty look, and his buddy Christian just laughed. Um, but, you know, it's those moments being with students and seeing them grow. Because now Alan is one of our student leaders. And it's amazing to see how much Alan has grown. He just came back from Romania a couple weeks ago where he was forced out of his comfort zone, and he played a clown. He wore a costume character thing, and it, you know, he had this experience where they went to help special needs people in Romania. So they speak a different language, and this one guy in particular, I think he said the guy was deaf, and he's like, here I am, a guy that can't even communicate with his own people. And here I speak a different language, and I just want to love on this guy. And all I can do to affect his life, you know, is to try and love on him and pray. And so it's neat to see how Alan, you know, I don't know how to do my own laundry, you know, to see him progress to where he's at. And, you know, he said, Chi Alpha, that's where I started taking my faith seriously. You know, last fall, and you know, we want to share more stories like that about students whose lives have been affected and changed, like your own, where their faith walk with Jesus is deep, and their relationship with God is impacted for the better because of what we do on campus. The relationships we have with students. Alan comes over, I mean, not now, he's home for the summer, but he would come over like every 2 weeks and do his laundry at our house. We said, you can use our washing machine and our dryer as long as you bring your own detergent. And Alan would come over and spend time with our family and our kids. And, you know, he's a part of our life. And so, I mean, you know, our lives wouldn't be the same without him.
Well, James, I'm glad you. Thank you for your time. I'm glad you and I got to connect on a Google Hangout, and I got to interview you. How's this for timing? Your family is out of town, and my family, my parents and sister, are in New Hampshire until the first week of August. So how's that for timing?
You got it. Got it. Yeah. You gonna get to see him?
Yeah, the first week of August.
Yeah, that's cool.
And I call my mom at least once a week.
I understand. I don't talk to my mom as much as I used to now that I'm 37 and married, but you know, sometimes you just gotta check in with mom. That's all good.
Yeah, it's all good. I just want to say that there's no bigger fan of Chi Alpha than me.
Well, thank you. It's stories like yours that help us, encourage us as Chi Alpha campus pastors to keep doing what we do, and you know, reaching students, changing lives.
James, you're too kind, but I feel like Donald Trump when I say that, because I feel like if Donald Trump talks about Chi Alpha and he loved it, he'd say, there's no bigger fan of Chi Alpha than me. He'd say something like that.
Hey, if he wanted to support my Chi Alpha group, I wouldn't turn that down. You know.
Yeah, maybe he'd donate $20,000 as they do for the celebrities' charities on Celebrity Apprentice.
Right, that would be great. $20,000 could do some incredible things to help us impact the lives of university students, for sure.
So, James, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for the invite. I'm glad to come out and hang out.
And to you guys who are watching, as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you again soon.